The city never slept, its streets glowing with neon lights, strange signs in alien languages, and crowds that never seemed to end. Humans rarely walked here, and when they did, eyes always followed them. Some eyes were curious, others full of suspicion, but most were dangerous. Among those crowds walked a man named Daniel. He was tired after a long journey across the stars. He only wanted food, maybe a drink, and a quiet corner to rest. Yet he could feel the heavy stairs pressing into his back as he moved deeper into the marketplace. He stopped near a small stall, bright with glowing fruit. The air smelled sharp, almost metallic, and voices clashed from all sides. That was when he noticed her. A young alien girl stood alone. Her skin shimmered faintly under the streetlights, silver mixed with soft blue. Her eyes glowed like amber fire. But when she looked at him, Daniel saw not fire, but fear. She moved, closer, careful, like a shadow sliding through the crowd. "Human," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. "Rent me for one night." Daniel froze. He thought he had misheard. The words sounded almost unreal. Was this a trick? A trap? He looked around, but no one seemed to notice. The girl stood close, her face half hidden under a hood. "I don't understand," Daniel said, his voice low but firm. She leaned closer. Her scent was sharp, strange, but there was something fragile about her. "Take me with you tonight, just one night," she whispered again, "even if you leave me pregnant." Daniel's eyes widened, his breath caught in his chest. He felt the weight of her words sink into him like a blade. This was not flirting, not an invitation. It was desperation. "Why would you say that?" he asked, his hand tightening at his side. "Why me?" Her eyes darted left and right. The crowd moved around them like a living river, alien shapes brushing past, strange laughter echoing. She whispered fast, "Because I cannot survive here. They will sell me, use me, break me. But if I carry a child, even if I die, something of me will live." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at her again. Really looked. She was young, maybe not more than 20 in human years. Her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of her cloak. He could see scars along her wrist, faint but real. Signs of chains. "This is madness," Daniel muttered. He should walk away. He had no reason to get involved, no reason to risk his own life for an alien stranger. Yet something in her eyes stopped him. It was not beauty, though she was striking. It was not the glow of her skin, though it shimmered like moonlight. It was the fear, the loneliness, the silent scream that no one else heard. The girl suddenly reached for his hand, her fingers cold, trembling. "Please," she begged. "If not you, then no one. They are already watching me. If they take me back, I am finished." Daniel's heart pounded. He glanced around and noticed two tall figures at the far end of the street, armored and heavy-built. Their insect-like eyes locked onto the crowd, searching. His gut told him they were looking for her. "You're being hunted," he said quietly. She nodded once, her lips pale. "Yes." For a moment, Daniel said nothing. The safe choice was simple. Walk away. Let her fate be hers. Humans had enough enemies out here already. But another voice inside him whispered, if he walked away, he would never forget those eyes. "Who are you?" Daniel asked. Her voice was barely a breath. "My name doesn't matter. Not yet. All that matters is tonight. Just one night. Please." The guards at the end of the street began moving closer, their armor clinking, their insect-like heads scanning. Daniel knew he had little time. If he left her here, she would be dragged away in chains before the next breath, against his better judgment. Daniel sighed. He leaned down and whispered, "Follow me, but stay close." Her amber eyes widened, not with joy but with relief. She nodded quickly and pulled her hood lower. Together they slipped into the crowd, moving fast. The air seemed heavier now. Every step Daniel took felt like walking on glass. He could hear the guards' voices echoing, cold and metallic. The girl pressed close behind him, her fear almost shaking through her body. They turned down a narrow alley, neon lights fading into shadows. The smell of damp stone filled the air. Daniel stopped and turned to face her. "Listen," he said. "I don't know what you've gotten me into, but if we're doing this, I need the truth, no more half words. Who are you running from?" Her lips trembled. For a moment she didn't answer. Then with a trembling breath she whispered, "I am running from my own people. They will not let me live free. They will not let me choose. But I chose you, human, even if it was only for one night." Daniel stared at her. His chest felt heavy. He knew one thing for sure now. Whatever she had dragged him into, it was only the beginning. And behind them, in the shadows of the alley, the sound of armored footsteps drew closer. The alley was dark. Only thin lines of neon light fell between the broken walls. Daniel stood still, listening to the sound of armored footsteps echoing closer. The girl pressed against the wall, her hood pulled down low, her glowing amber eyes dimmed with fear. "They're coming," she whispered. Daniel's mind raced. He had no weapon, no plan, just a desperate stranger clinging to him. But something in him refused to let her be dragged back like an animal. He grabbed her hand and pulled her deeper into the maze of alleys. They moved fast, their boots splashing in puddles of dirty water. Voices rang out behind them. Cold, sharp, not human. The hunters shouted orders in their alien tongue. The sound of metal against stone followed. At last, they reached a door, half hidden. By shadows, Daniel shoved it open and dragged her inside. It led to a narrow storage room, dusty and forgotten. He closed the door and pressed his ear against it. Silence, then footsteps passing, then fading. Only when the noise was gone did he turn to face her. "Now you tell me the truth," he said firmly, his voice low but heavy. "Who are you, and why are they after you?" She pulled back her hood, letting her silver-blue skin catch the faint light. She looked young, but her eyes carried weight far older than her face. "My name is Kayla," she whispered. "I belong to the Vayari. Or at least, I used to." Daniel frowned. He had heard the name before. The Vayari were known for their strict laws, their iron control, and their strange obsession with bloodlines. They were not friendly to humans. "Why are you running from your own kind?" he asked. Her lips trembled. She sat down on a broken crate, her hands gripping the edge as if to stop them from shaking. "Because to them I am only a vessel," she said. Her voice cracked. "My people are dying, births are rare, children are fewer each year. So they take girls like me, they control us, they tell us who to mate with, who to serve, they don't care if we want it or not." Daniel felt his stomach twist. Her words cut deep. He had seen cruelty before in many worlds, but this was different. This was not just slavery, it was something worse. Chains built into blood and life itself. Kayla's eyes shimmered, not with anger, but with pain. "I begged for freedom. They laughed at me. They said I was weak, useless, but I refused, so they marked me for punishment." She pulled back her sleeve, showing the faint scars on her wrist. "I was chained, made to wait until they decided who would own me." Daniel's jaw tightened. He understood now why she had whispered that desperate offer in the marketplace. It wasn't about desire. It was about survival. She had wanted him to claim her so her people could not. "You thought if you carried a human child they couldn't take you back?" Daniel said quietly. Kayla nodded, tears threatening to fall. "It was my only chance. Even if I died, I wanted something of me to live, something they couldn't control." For a moment, silence filled the room. Daniel's chest felt heavy. He wanted to be angry, but at who? At her for dragging him into this? Or at the cruel system that had left her no choice? "Why me?" he finally asked. "Out of all the people in that city, why pick me?" Kayla looked at him with those glowing amber eyes, her voice softened. "Because humans are different. You don't see us the way my people do. I've heard stories, I've seen whispers. Humans choose with heart, not just with blood." Daniel let out a slow breath. He didn't know if she was right, but he could not deny the truth. In her eyes, she had seen something in him, even before he had seen it in himself. Suddenly, a sharp noise outside broke the silence. the sound of claws scratching metal. Daniel's muscles tensed. He moved to the door, peeking through a crack. Two of the hunters stood in the alley, their insect-like faces scanning the shadows. Their armor gleamed under the faint light. One of them hissed, its voice low and sharp. Daniel couldn't understand the words, but he felt the intent. Search, capture, punish. He turned back to Kayla. "We can't stay here," he said. "If they find us, it's over." Her face was pale, her hands gripping her cloak. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They will chase me until I am broken. That is the law of the Veyari." Daniel knelt beside her, his voice low but steady. "Then we run. We keep running until they can't find you." Kayla looked at him, confusion mixing with hope. "Why?" "You don't know me. You could walk away and be safe." Daniel's lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't fully understand his own answer, but he knew it in his heart. "Because no one deserves chains," he said. For the first time, Kayla's eyes softened, not just with fear but with something else, something like trust. The sound outside grew louder. The hunters were moving closer. Daniel grabbed her hand again. "Come on," he whispered. "We don't have time." Together they slipped out a back exit, disappearing once more into the endless maze of neon streets. But even as they ran, Daniel knew this was no longer about one night. The girl carried a pain too heavy for one evening, and the path ahead would only grow darker. And somewhere deep inside, he wondered, had he just stepped into a fight he could never escape? The night air was colder now, sharp against Daniel's skin as he guided Kayla through the twisting streets. Neon lights flickered above them, painting her silver-blue face in strange colors. Her hood was pulled low, but her glowing eyes still shone faintly through the shadows. They moved until the sounds of the hunters faded behind them. Daniel finally stopped near a broken building at the edge of the city. Its walls were cracked, its roof half collapsed, but it was empty. He pushed the door open and checked inside. Dust covered the floor and the air smelled of rust. "It would do. Stay here," he said quietly, leading her in. Kayla's steps were slow, heavy, as if each one carried years of pain. She sat down on the cold floor, pulling her cloak tighter. For the first time since he had met her, she looked less like a hunted fugitive and more like a fragile girl trying to survive. Daniel searched the corners, making sure there were no cameras or traps. When he was certain they were alone, he sat across from her, his eyes fixed on her face. "You said you only needed one night," he began. "What did you mean?" Kayla hesitated. Her lips trembled as she spoke. "Among the Veyari, one night can change everything. If I return carrying life, they cannot sell me. They cannot chain me. I become untouchable." She lowered her head, shame filling her voice. "That is why I begged you, human." Daniel leaned back. His heart was heavy. He had expected fear, maybe lies, but not this kind of truth. This was desperation carved deep into her soul. "You really thought I would just take advantage of you?" he asked. His tone was sharp, but his eyes softened. Kayla's cheeks flushed a faint silver blue. She shook her head slowly. "I didn't know what you would do. Humans are a mystery to us. Some say you are cruel. Others say you are kind. I prayed you would be the second." Daniel let out a slow breath. He felt anger, not at her, but at the system that forced her into this corner. He stood up and pulled a small pack from his belt. From inside, he took a ration bar and a flask of water. He handed them to her. "Eat," he said firmly. "You need strength." Kayla stared at the food as if it were treasure. Her hands shook as she unwrapped the bar. She took small bites, almost afraid it would vanish if she ate too fast. Daniel watched silently. Something about the way she ate cut into him. It wasn't hunger. Alone, it was the fear that this might be her last meal. After a while, she looked at him again, her amber eyes softer now. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Daniel didn't answer right away. He thought of Earth, of all the people he had left behind. He thought of the war zones he had crossed, the slaves he had seen in other worlds, the children begging for food. And then he looked at her, alone, trembling, yet still fighting for life, because no one else would, he said simply. For a long time, silence filled the broken room. Only the distant hum of the city could be heard. Kayla pulled her cloak tighter around herself. Her head leaned against the wall, exhaustion clear in her eyes. Daniel sighed. He took off his jacket and placed it over her shoulders. "Rest," he told her. "I'll keep watch." Her lips parted, as if to argue, but then she stopped. Her eyes shimmered and she nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. As the night stretched on, Daniel sat near the door, his hand resting on a piece of scrap metal he had picked up as a weapon. He stayed alert, listening for the sound of hunters, but every so often his eyes drifted back to her. She looked peaceful now, her breathing slow, her face calm. But Daniel could see the scars hidden beneath that calm, the weight of years, of chains, the silent suffering no one had heard. When Kayla stirred awake hours later, she found Daniel still sitting there, watching over her. Her eyes widened slightly. "You did not sleep," she whispered. "Didn't need to," Daniel replied with a small shrug. Something changed in her gaze then. It was no longer fear or desperation, but something softer, warmer. She sat up, her voice quiet. "I thought tonight would be the end for me. Instead, it feels like a beginning." Daniel met her eyes. He wanted to say something, but words failed. Instead, he simply nodded. For a moment, it felt as if the world outside didn't exist. No hunters, no chains, no fear, just two souls in a broken room, sharing silence. But the peace did not last long. A faint sound outside broke it, a metallic click like claws on stone. Daniel's body tensed. He motioned for Kayla to stay silent. Through the crack of the door, he saw shadows moving. The hunters were searching, again closer this time. Their voices carried through the night, cold and merciless. Kayla's breath quickened. She looked at Daniel, fear returning to her eyes. "They will find me," she whispered. Daniel tightened his grip on the scrap metal in his hand, his jaw set, his voice low and steady. Not if I stop them first. For Kayla, it had begun as one night of survival. For Daniel, it was turning into something else, something that might change both of their lives forever. The night was far from over, and the hunters were closing in. But neither of them knew that this would be the night that truly changed everything. The silence outside the broken building shattered in seconds. The hunters' voices grew louder, cold and sharp. Their armored feet scraped against the stone. Daniel's hand tightened on the scrap of metal he had picked up. His heart beat fast, but his mind stayed sharp. Kayla's amber eyes locked on him, fear clear in her face. "They're close," she whispered. Her voice barely a breath. Daniel moved to the door. Peeking through the crack, he saw two shadows glide past, their insect-like heads turning side to side, searching. Behind them, a third figure joined, taller, heavier, its armor glowing faintly in the dark. They were sweeping the alleys like predators hunting wounded prey. "They're blocking the street," Daniel muttered. He turned to Kayla. "We can't stay. If they search every building, they'll find us." Kayla's lips trembled. "Then where can we go?" Daniel's jaw tightened. He didn't know this city well, but he had instincts. He had survived worse places before. He pulled her to her feet. "Stay close. Don't fall behind." They slipped through the back of the building, climbing over piles of rusted metal. The night air hit them again, sharp and cold. The city's neon lights flickered far above like a false sky. The noise of the crowd was still alive in the distance, and Daniel knew that crowd was their only cover. They reached the edge of a narrow street, filled with glowing stalls and strange vendors. Daniel pulled Kayla's hood lower and stepped into the stream of people. The crowd swallowed them quickly, aliens of every shape moving shoulder to shoulder, some with glowing scales, others with insect wings folded tight. Kayla pressed against Daniel's side, her trembling hand clutching his sleeve. Behind them, the hunters pushed into the same street, towering above the smaller aliens. Their armor clinked, their voices sharp. They scanned every face, every shadow. Daniel's mind raced. He needed to disappear, but humans were rare here. His height, his skin, his very face made him stand out. If the hunters spotted him, they would spot her. Suddenly, he saw a food stall. Steaming with hot smoke, the vendor shouted in a strange language, selling roasted creatures that hissed with heat. Daniel pulled Kayla close and dragged her behind the stall. The smoke covered them for a moment, the thick smell burning his nose. One of the hunters passed only a few steps away. Its insect eyes scanned the crowd, clicking as it spoke into a device. Daniel held Kayla tight, his hand covering her mouth to keep her quiet. He felt her body trembling against his. The hunter paused. Its head turned slightly. Daniel's heart froze. He could hear Kayla's breath quicken under his hand, but then a drunk alien stumbled into the hunter, spilling a glowing drink across its armor. The hunter hissed in anger and shoved the drunk aside, moving away. Daniel exhaled slowly, pulling Kayla from the stall. "We can't keep hiding like this," he whispered. "We need to move fast." They pushed deeper into the marketplace, weaving between crowds. Daniel used every trick he knew, turning down sharp alleys, doubling, back, walking close behind groups of aliens to mask his presence. Kayla followed, her trust in him growing with each step. But the hunters were clever. They spread out, cutting through the crowd from different angles. Their glowing armor stood out, and their sharp voices carried through the noise. Finally, they broke free of the marketplace, entering a long street lit by neon signs. The signs glowed in colors Daniel had never seen before: green fire, violet mist, golden streams of light. But none of it mattered, because at the far end, he saw more hunters waiting. Kayla's grip on his sleeve tightened. "They're everywhere," she whispered. Her voice shook with panic. Daniel scanned the street. His mind worked fast. He noticed a group of aliens carrying long cloth banners advertising some strange show. He pulled Kayla toward them and grabbed one of the banners, wrapping it around his shoulders like a cloak. "Keep your head down," he told her. She obeyed. Hiding beneath the cloth, they moved with the group, pretending to be part of the parade. For a moment, it worked. The hunters looked past them, scanning the crowd. But then one of the hunters hissed, its insect eyes narrowing. It pointed directly. "At Daniel, run!" Daniel shouted, throwing the banner aside. They bolted, the crowd exploding in chaos behind them. Vendors screamed, creatures scattered. Neon lights blurred as Daniel pulled Kayla down side streets. Hunters charged after them, their heavy footsteps echoing like thunder. Daniel's lungs burned, but he didn't stop. He grabbed Kayla's hand tighter, dragging her through twists and turns. He remembered Earth's cities, remembered how to vanish in tight spaces. He spotted a drainage tunnel ahead, dark and narrow. Without hesitation, he shoved Kayla inside, then followed. The tunnel smelled of rot and damp water dripping from above. They crouched low, their footsteps splashing softly. Behind them, the hunters' voices echoed. Growing faint, the tunnel twisted sharply, leading them away from the main streets. At last, they reached a small chamber where the tunnel split. Daniel stopped, both of them gasping for breath. Kayla leaned against the wall, her face pale. Her glowing eyes shimmered in the dark. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They'll chase me until I'm caught, until I'm broken." Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, his chest rising and falling. He looked at her with steady eyes. "Then we don't let them. We keep moving, we stay one step ahead no matter what." Kayla stared at him. Her fear softened, replaced by something new. Hope, fragile but real. She whispered, "You could have left me in the market. You could have walked away. But you didn't." Daniel said nothing for a moment. He felt the weight of her words. He didn't fully understand why he stayed, but he knew this. Once he had taken her hand, there was no going back. The faint sound of hunters echoed again in the tunnel. They were still searching. Daniel gripped the scrap metal in his hand, his voice steady. "This isn't just about one night anymore." Kayla's eyes widened slightly at his words. For the first time, her lips curved into the smallest, faintest smile, and together, they disappeared deeper into the neon-lit underworld. The hunters, shadows following close behind. The drainage tunnel stretched endlessly, damp and echoing with each step. Daniel led the way, his hand brushing the wall to steady himself. Kayla followed close, her cloak heavy with moisture. The sound of water, dripping from the ceiling, filled the silence, but beneath it they could still hear faint echoes. The hunters were not far. Daniel stopped at a curve, turning to Kayla. His voice was low but firm. "We can't keep running without a plan. If you want me to help you, I need to know everything. No more half-truths, no more whispers." Kayla lowered her hood, her silver blue skin glistening in the dim light. Her amber eyes looked tired but determined. She swallowed hard. "If I tell you, you may hate me." Daniel shook his head. "Try me." For a long moment she stood silent. The dripping water seemed louder. Finally she spoke, her voice trembling but clear. "My people, the Vayari, were not always this cruel," she began. "Long ago we thrived, our cities shone like crystal towers and children filled every home. But then came the sickness, a curse of the blood. Our children began to die before birth, and each new life grew rarer." Daniel listened closely, his chest tightening. He had heard of alien species with dying bloodlines before, but never like this. Kayla's eyes shimmered as she continued. "The elders created laws to save us. They forced the strongest of our kind to breed. They kept bloodlines locked in iron. And girls like me became nothing more than vessels. We are chosen, used, and discarded." Her lips shook. "That is why I ran." Daniel's jaw tightened. He felt anger burning inside, not at her, but at the system that turned life into chains. "And the hunters?" he asked. "They are not soldiers." Kayla whispered bitterly. "They are collectors, sent to retrieve girls like me. To them, I am not Kayla. I am property." Her words cut deep. Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to break something. He wanted to fight the faceless elders who thought they had the right to own her. Kayla's hands trembled as she pulled a pendant from under her cloak. It was small, shaped like a crystal shard, glowing faintly. "This," she said, "is proof of my bloodline. It shows I carry one of the rarest strains among the Vayari. If I am captured, I will be forced to bear children until I die." Daniel stared at the pendant. He understood now why the hunters chased her so fiercely. She wasn't just any fugitive. She was priceless to them. "You said before," Daniel spoke slowly, "that even if you were left pregnant, you would survive?" Kayla nodded, shame in her eyes. "Yes, because carrying life makes me untouchable. My people worship blood. They will not harm a mother with a child, not even the cruelest among them. That is why I begged you, human. That is why I risked everything." Daniel's chest felt heavy. He finally understood her desperation in the market. She hadn't been searching for love or even kindness. She had been searching for freedom in the only way her people would respect. "You shouldn't have to beg for your life," Daniel said, his voice sharp with anger. "You shouldn't need chains or children to be free." Kayla's amber eyes filled with tears, but she forced a smile. "And yet here I am, standing before a human who gave me food instead of chains, kindness instead of fear." For a moment, silence filled the tunnel. Daniel met her gaze and saw more than fear there now. He saw strength hidden under years of pain. Then a sound shattered the moment. The clank of metal echoing down the tunnel. The hunters were close. Daniel's grip tightened on the scrap metal he still carried. His voice was low and steady. "We keep moving." They slipped deeper into the tunnels until they reached a hidden grate. Daniel forced it open with his shoulder. The grate fell away with a crash, and they climbed out into a narrow street behind. The city. Neon lights glowed faintly above, but this part of the city was quieter, full of broken signs and crumbling walls. Kayla stepped out and pulled her cloak tight. Her breathing was uneven. Daniel glanced around, checking the shadows. "This won't hold them off for long," he said. "If they want you this badly, they'll never stop." Kayla's voice cracked. "Then maybe I should surrender. If I run, more people will suffer. They will punish the city for hiding me." Daniel turned to her sharply. "Don't you dare. You've suffered enough. If they want you, They'll have to go through me first. Kayla blinked. Her amber eyes widened. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. She looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Not as a stranger, not as a human, but as someone who had chosen her side when no one else would. The night wind blew across the empty street, carrying the faint sound of armored footsteps. Daniel lifted his chin, his voice steady. They want a vessel, but I see a person and I won't let them take that away from you. Kayla's eyes filled with tears, but this time they did not fall. She nodded slowly, her voice soft but firm. Then I will follow you, human, even if it costs me everything. The hunter's shadows stretched at the far end of the street, glowing armor cutting through the dark. Daniel stepped in front of Kayla, scrap metal in hand, his heart burning with defiance. The secrets of her blood had been revealed, and now, he understood the weight she carried, but he also knew something else. This was no longer her fight alone, it was theirs, and together, they would face the storm that was coming. The broken street stretched long and empty. Neon lights flickered weakly above. Daniel stood in front of Kayla, scrap metal tight in his hand. The hunter's shadows grew larger at the far end, their glowing armor cutting through the night. They're closing in, Kayla whispered, her voice shaking. Daniel's jaw clenched. He scanned the buildings around them, cracked walls, broken doors, dark windows. He needed a way out. But before he could move, a soft voice called from the shadows, "This way, human." Daniel spun around. A figure stepped out of the darkness. A small alien wrapped in rags, his skin pale green, his eyes narrow and quick. Daniel recognized him. It was Jorik, a street fixer Daniel had met earlier when buying food. "You helped me once?" Jorik said quickly. "Now I help you. Follow me before the hunters surround this street." Daniel hesitated. His instincts screamed caution, but Kayla's hand tightened on his sleeve, her eyes full of fear. They had no time. The hunters were already marching closer. Their metallic voices echoed across the walls. Daniel gave a sharp nod. "Lead the way." Jorik darted into a side alley. Daniel and Kayla followed. The path twisted through broken stairways and narrow gaps between buildings. It smelled of rust and rot, but it was hidden from the open streets. At last, they reached an abandoned warehouse. Jorik shoved the heavy doors open. The space inside was dark, filled with broken crates and dust. "Safe here," Jorik said with a grin. "The hunters won't search this place. They fear the old metal, superstitious fools." Kayla leaned against a crate, her cloak slipping. From her shoulders, her face pale with exhaustion. Daniel stood near her, still gripping the scrap metal, his eyes never leaving Jorik. "Why are you helping us?" Daniel asked flatly. Jorik's grin widened. "Because humans pay well, and the Veari pay even better." The words hit like a knife. Daniel's chest tightened. "What did you say?" Before Kayla could react, the sound of heavy doors slamming shut echoed through the warehouse. From the shadows, hunters stepped forward, their glowing armor lighting up the space, their insect-like eyes locked on Kayla. Kayla gasped, stumbling back. "No!" Daniel moved in front of her, his scrap metal raised, his glare locked on Jorik. "You betrayed us." Jorik shrugged, his voice mocking. "Business? Human? You think I'd risk my life for free? The girl is worth more than gold, more than ships. Her bloodline is priceless. You were a fool to believe you could protect her." The hunters advanced, their heavy steps shaking the floor. Daniel swung the scrap metal at the first one. The blow clanged against the armor, sparks flying. The hunter staggered but didn't fall. Another swung its clawed arm at Daniel, knocking him back against a crate. "Daniel!" Kayla cried, rushing to him. "Run!" he shouted, pushing her toward the back. But there was no escape. More hunters blocked the exits. Their sharp voices filled the room, orders in a tongue Daniel didn't know. One of them grabbed Kayla's arm, yanking her cloak away. Her pendant glowed in the dim light, and the hunters hissed in triumph. "No!" Daniel roared. He charged forward, swinging the scrap metal with all his strength. He slammed it against the hunter's head. The creature staggered, but another knocked Daniel down. pinning him to the ground with its heavy foot. Kayla struggled. Against the grip of the hunters, her amber eyes wide with terror. "Daniel!" she screamed. Her voice echoed through the empty warehouse. Jorik stood at the side, his grin cruel. "Don't waste your breath, girl. You belong to them now. Your human can't save you." Daniel's vision blurred with pain, but his rage burned hotter. He pushed against the weight of the hunter's foot, his teeth gritted. "You think this is over?" he growled. "You have no idea what humans can do." The hunters ignored him, binding Kayla's wrists with glowing chains. She cried out as the energy burned against her skin. Daniel's chest twisted at the sound. He fought harder, but the hunters slammed him back down. Kayla's tears glistened as she was dragged across the floor. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "Daniel, don't give up. Please, don't let them take me." Her words stabbed deep. Daniel's muscles strained. His arms shook, but the hunters were too strong. They dragged Kayla toward the doors, their claws gripping her like iron. Jorik followed behind, laughing softly. "One night was all you had. Human, and now it's finished." Daniel's heart thundered, his vision darkened with fury. He watched helplessly as Kayla was pulled away, her glowing eyes never leaving his. The heavy doors slammed shut with a metallic echo, leaving Daniel pinned on the floor, his body aching. The warehouse fell silent except for Daniel's ragged breathing. His fists clenched against the ground, his mind burned with rage. He had promised not to let them take her, but now she was gone. Stolen by the very chains she had run from, Daniel lay there in the dust, his chest rising and falling, his body weak but his spirit burning like fire. He whispered through clenched teeth, "I'm coming for you, Kayla. No matter what it takes, I'll find you." And in that moment, Daniel knew this wasn't just survival anymore. This was war. Chains rattled in the dark chamber as Kayla was thrown to the ground. Her wrists burned with the glowing cuffs. The hunters stood guard around her, their insect eyes shining with cruel satisfaction. Beyond them, high in the shadows, the elders of the Vayari waited. Kayla's chest rose and fell fast. Her amber eyes glistened with tears. She had run so far. She had begged for freedom. Yet, here she was again, chained. Her heart ached. But what hurt more than the cuffs was the thought of Daniel left behind. "Another vessel," one of the elders hissed. "Strong bloodline, rare strain. She will give us what we need." Kayla closed her eyes, her voice trembling. "I will never belong to you." The elder laughed, cold and sharp. "You already do." But even as the words echoed, a thunderous crash shook the chamber. The heavy doors burst open, sparks flying. The hunters spun around, claws raised. Daniel stormed in, his face bruised, his clothes torn, but his eyes burned like fire. In his hands, he carried a stolen weapon, one of the hunter's plasma staffs. Its edge glowed with lethal light. "Step away from her," Daniel growled, his voice deep, filled with rage. The hunters hissed and lunged forward. Daniel swung the staff with raw fury. Sparks exploded as it cut through armor. One hunter fell. Another staggered. Daniel pressed forward, his body aching but his will unbroken. Kayla gasped, her eyes wide with shock. "Daniel?" He fought like a storm, each strike fueled by the promise he had whispered in the dust of the warehouse. He would not let them take her. He would not let chains define her life. One hunter knocked him back, claws slashing across his arm. Daniel gritted his teeth, pain surging, but he didn't fall. He slammed the plasma staff into its chest, sparks bursting as the creature collapsed. "Kill the human!" one elder shouted. More hunters rushed him, but Daniel moved with desperate speed, weaving, striking. Every swing was survival. Every step was defiance. He had nothing but fire inside, and that fire burned brighter than their chains. At last, Daniel reached Kayla. He dropped beside her, his chest heaving. "I told you," he said, his voice rough. "I'd come for you." Her tears fell as she looked at him. "You're bleeding, you shouldn't be here." He cut her off, smashing the glowing cuffs with the plasma staff. The chains shattered, and Kayla gasped as freedom rushed back into her veins. The elders hissed in fury. Their voices echoed across the chamber. "Stop them." But Kayla stood now, her cloak falling away. Her amber eyes blazed with defiance. For the first time, she was not trembling. She stood tall beside Daniel. Together they faced the hunters, Daniel gripping the plasma staff, Kayla holding the broken chain like a weapon. The hunters advanced, but for every step they took, Daniel and Kayla took one forward too. The fight was brutal. The chamber rang with the sound of metal, claws, and fire, but in the heart of it all was Daniel's voice, steady, unbroken, whispering, words that struck deeper than any blade. "You are not a vessel, Kayla. You are not their property. You are free." Kayla's chest ached at his words. Her strength surged. She struck the nearest hunter with the broken chain, sparks flying. The creature fell one by one. The hunters faltered, until silence filled the chamber. Their bodies lay scattered, the elders retreating into the shadows, hissing in disbelief. Daniel's chest rose and fell with exhaustion. He dropped the plasma staff, his hands shaking. Kayla rushed to him, catching him before he fell, her arms wrapped tight around him. "You're insane," she whispered through tears. "You should have left me. You could have lived." Daniel looked into her glowing amber eyes, his face pale, his voice soft but steady. "One night? That was never enough. Stay with me, Kayla, stay forever." Her heart broke and healed in the same breath. Tears slid down her cheeks as she nodded. "Forever," she whispered back. The chamber trembled as alarms rang out. More enemies would come. But at that moment it didn't matter. For the first time, Kayla was not afraid. For the first time, she was not alone. Daniel leaned against her, his strength fading, but his eyes still burned with defiance. "Let them come," he murmured. "As long as you're with me, we'll fight them all." Kayla held him tighter, her heart pounding with new fire. No chains, no elders, no hunters could take that moment away. Together they walked out of the chamber, their shadows side by side against the broken light. It had begun as a desperate bargain, one night for survival, but it ended as something far greater. A promise, born in whispers, stronger than blood, stronger than fear, a promise of forever.